Hey guys, okay, cook a steak with me. Alrighty, so I got a small steak from Amazon Fresh. It's really thin because I only paid a couple of, I think $13 for it. So, that's cheap for a steak. But the reason why the steak is so cheap is because it's so thin. That's why the steak is cheap. It's a very thin steak. It's like half the size of your average ribeye, but I still wanted a steak and I didn't want to pay $30 for a steak. So Amazon have pretty decent steaks for what it's worth. So yeah, I'm washing the steak. I have to wash my meat, honey. I threw some vinegar on there, right? And I rinse it off. Yep, I rinse off my steak with a little bit vinegar. Yep, I do. Get rid of, I don't know if it fell on the floor. I don't know if it has dried up blood in it. I just rinse off my steak. Yes, I do. All right. So once I rinse off my steak, then I'm going to season it up. First, I'm going to dry it off. I'm going to dry off the steak, right? A lot of people will say you're not supposed to wash meat. Wash your meat with some vinegar. Get that raw taste out of it. I dry it off the steak with a fresh piece of paper towel. Now the steak is dry. It's time to season the meat. Okay? All right. Now, I got my washed clean steak dry and nice. Now I'm seasoning the meat with some salt and pepper. When you're cooking steak, that's all you need is a little salt and pepper and maybe a dab of garlic powder. Okay, that's all you need on steak. Salt, pepper, and garlic powder. I'm using the pink Himalayan sea salt right now. And you hear me shaking that steak. Yep, and I put a decent amount of salt because, I'm going to cook it right away, basically. And you're going to lose a lot of the salt while you're cooking. So I put a decent amount of salt. Yes, and pepper. You see, I'm getting all sides. Yep, I like my food seasoned up. Yes, I do. And that's the right way to eat your food. And I put a little bit, yeah, that's basically it.
Supposed to be showing.
Now,
but I know when you see the seasoning you're using, like.
Yeah, but
while I was seasoning up the steak, I had my pot on the oven, on the stove, and getting it hot. You see the smoke? Yeah, I put a little avocado oil in there because avocado oil doesn't burn. It conducts heat very well. So yeah, I put it on. You hear it searing? Yep, it's searing really well. I like my steak to have a crust on the outside. I don't want the steak to look saggy and gray. So the pot has to be hot before you even sear the steak. And you can use olive oil if you want, but that's like an oil that burns and it doesn't conduct heat well. If you want a good sear on your steak, use avocado oil because it really holds on to the heat, or coconut oil as well. But I don't recommend olive oil if you're trying to get a good sear on a piece of meat because it burns. Olive oil burns. It doesn't conduct heat well. It's for other purposes. Right, so yeah, I'm gonna use the spatula and just press it down. Yeah, I'm gonna press it down until I feel like, yeah, it might be cooked or it might have a good sear to it. I'm gonna let it sit. I think, let's see, every meat is different, so I can't say how much time you should keep it on one side, but every meat is different. Now I'm flipping it. Ooh, look at the sear. You see that? That's how I like my steak. Yup, I like both sides of my steak to have a nice crust on it, right? Yup, it looks good. That's how I like my steak, having a crust. I don't like the white, gray, soggy steak. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't look good. All right. So now, after I have my both sides nice and crusted, I put some thyme in the pot with some butter, and I baste the steak. That's not the greatest shot or whatever. My hand is like blocking the whole thing, but you know what I'm doing. I'm basting the steak. I let the butter melt and baste the steak. Right? Yummy. Oh yeah, baby. Oh, yeah, you gotta baste the steak. And you always use a cast iron pan. That's the best way to go about doing it. Use a cast iron pan when you're doing a steak. A nice heavy cast iron pan that conducts heat, that holds onto that heat. Right? So I'm basting the steak and I'm going to put it in the oven for 5 minutes or so.
Truth. Let's see.
And then this is how I like my steak, well done. I know y'all going to think, oh, it's overdone. You don't have to cook it that long. But I like my steak well done, well done.
This is fine. This is well done. Yeah?
It's a tasty steak. It has a lot of flavor. And I like it. Yep. That's how you do a steak. You got it. So go ahead and try your steak out. And let me know what you think.